As the investigation continues into the 22-year-old alleged assassin of Charlie Kirk, Utah Governor Spencer Cox, and you know who, had much different takes on how we got here as a country. Take a look.
The radicals on the right oftentimes are radical because they don't want to see crime. They don't want to see crime.
Worried about the border.
They're saying, we don't want these people coming in. We don't want you burning our shopping centers. We don't want you shooting our people in the middle of the street. The radicals on the left are the problem.
We can return violence with violence. We can return hate with hate. And that's the problem with political violence, is it metastasizes. Because we can always point the finger at the other side. And at some point, we have to find an off-ramp, or it's going to get much, much worse. This is our moment. Do we escalate, or do we find an off-ramp?
President Trump is very angry, and Charlie is his close personal friend. There is a lot of anger on the right, on my side of the aisle, and I've certainly felt that. And in this case, it does appear that that's true. Again, more information is coming, and we'll learn more over time. You know, I don't know that matters as much as the radicalization piece. I brought up the Democrats who were assassinated recently, and how quickly we move on from these things. But the body count is piling up.
So whose message is going to make more of a dent here?
Well, go ahead. Well, I would hope the governor of Utah, because when this pointing of fingers and pendulum swinging is history just doing it. If you don't get off the ride and stop doing the pointing when it comes to politics, because I don't think our political division right now is what is driving a lot of these violent acts. I think what's problem is there are studies showing the decline of third spaces, which is, you know, you have your family, and then you have work or school, and then communities used to be based on churches, the local sports store, a hobby place. We used to interact with each other. It's not a coincidence that the arch goes up at the same time as social media and smartphones. Mm-hmm. We have stopped connecting with people. And Vivek Murthy, the former Surgeon General, he issued a warning to the world about the pandemic of loneliness. And he said, when we are less invested in one another, we're more susceptible to polarization and less able to pull together to face the challenges that we cannot solve alone. Relationships, service, and purpose. That is the root of these deep problems we're at.
Yeah, I would hope that Governor Spencer Cox of Utah is the voice that wins out at the end of the day. I don't know that I'm optimistic, but I think he's largely been pitch perfect in this. And I'm still remembering there is a 31-year-old man who I didn't necessarily agree with on many things, but who's dead today and whose wife doesn't have him. His kids will be raised without him because he was in the public space, being the man in the arena, standing up for, talking about what he believed in. And that is such a fundamentally American right that we all have. But I want to push back on this notion. When this happened, all I thought is, I hope we get the perpetrator, and can this please stop happening in our country? In this rush that people have to point and say, well, it's the left or it's the right and it's only one side, it's not true, guys. I remember, and no one at this table has said that, I remember where I was during the Steve Scalise shooting. I was working on Capitol Hill. Several of my bosses were there. We didn't know if they were okay for hours. And then I remember where I was when Paul Pelosi was attacked and when there were 2 attempts on Donald Trump's life. There has been political violence. Josh Shapiro was attacked and the Minnesota lawmakers, against Democrats and against Republicans. And when we swear it is just one side, we're not being part of the solution. I would rather never have a place in public life again and call the truth of what I see, which is that the rhetoric, the radicalization, the lonely places and deep, dangerous places people go on social media is driving people into the most dangerous corners and dangerous actions. It is bigger than politics, and if we don't acknowledge that, we are contributing to the problem. Finally, I'll say this. There was this really powerful quote that from the governor. He said, there are conflict entrepreneurs out there who benefit from radicalizing us. Tech companies that make billions of dollars by giving us an algorithm that's meant to make us hate our neighbor, reject it. Touch grass, talk to your neighbor, talk to humans. We have to be the change we want to see.
Yeah. Look, you know, I'm grateful to the leaders, because I do think that elected leaders in particular have a duty and responsibility to try to bring us together in times of national shock, national grief, national mourning. And I'm grateful to the former living presidents Barack Obama, Bill Clinton, George W. Bush, who put out statements that said just that. I'm grateful to this governor of Utah who is trying to do that in every platform he has. I would like to say that I was disappointed in what Donald Trump said, but I'm not, because that's who he is, and that's who he's always been in times like this. Let's compare how he is reacting to this Charlie Kirk assassination, horrible assassination, and the way he's reacting to the killing, the political assassination. And I want to say their names, because we keep saying the Minnesota lawmakers. They were people. They were parents. It was Melissa and her, Hortman and her husband, James, and their dog, Gilbert. It was their family that also has now 2 children that are going to be left to be raised without a mother and a father. And so, to me, it doesn't matter what their political persuasion was. Look, you know, a lot of people are out there trying to portray Charlie Kirk as if he was spreading pixie dust around the country. A lot of people, to use the word of Governor Cox, found what he said inflammatory or worse. But that's not the point. The point is we are in America. He has the right to say it. I have the right to disagree and find it abhorrent. But our weapon in this country is debate. Our weapon is freedom of speech. Our weapon is organizing. Our weapon is our vote. Our weapon should never, ever be a gun.
You know, I think that all of what you just said is absolutely correct. It's enshrined in our Constitution. We have the right to have debate. We have the right to speak freely about our opinions and our views, and no one should be assassinated because of that. And I think that the Utah governor, I appreciate that he's trying to turn the temperature down. I think that's really important. But there was something that he said at the same presser on Friday that struck me as not helpful, and that he said, bad stuff happens, and for 33 hours, I was praying that if this had to happen here, that it wouldn't be one of us, that somebody drove from another state, somebody came from another country. But it did happen here, and it was one of us. And I think that, while definitely not intentional, I think his comments reinforce the narrative that violence in this country is not homegrown. We remember that the FBI agent, Christopher Wray, said that the #1 area of attack and terrorism is domestic terrorism. So American politics has long been haunted by political violence, homegrown. And I hope that if anything can come out of this horrible tragedy, because it is a tragedy that a young man was assassinated and leaves 2 children behind, that we take a look at ourselves and our actions and try to change our country from within, because we need to be very reflective at this point in time.
And Melissa Hortman, her husband's name was Mark, and the dog's name was Gilbert.
You know, we've seen it before.
Yeah.
We've seen it before. It's awful. It's awful when it's a Kennedy or when it's a Lincoln or a Garfield. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. And what assassins should always remember is just because you take somebody out doesn't mean the message is going to stop. Yeah. And it's important to keep that in mind, because when you look at our loss of Martin Luther King, or name anyone who's been assassinated in this country, we continue to fight on. And that's what America offers. It says, listen, you have the right to say and feel however you want. That is a birthright. You're born with that right. So taking somebody out is not the way to do it. You want to fight about something, then go to the ballot box. Go elect different people. Killing people doesn't do anything except make it a horrible world for their children.